Most people look at a man who is quiet, compliant, and deeply unthreatening, and they call him a good man. They equate morality with harmlessness. We are conditioned by a hyper-sterilized modern culture to believe that virtue is found in the complete absence of aggression. Men are actively taught to be soft, to apologize for their natural competitive instincts, and to shrink their physical and intellectual presence, so they do not intimidate the weak. But this definition of goodness is a massive cultural delusion. It is a coping mechanism designed by the powerless to make their vulnerability look like a moral choice. The reality is far more clinical, far more ruthless, and entirely predictable. A man who is utterly incapable of violence is not a peaceful man. He is merely a harmless man, and there is absolutely no morality in being harmless. To understand the brutal architecture of true moral authority, we must completely discard the illusion that weakness is a virtue. Peace is not the absence of power, it is the absolute mastery of it. If you are physically, intellectually, and strategically incapable of inflicting damage upon the world, your pacifism is not a choice. It is a biological mandate. A rabbit is not virtuous because it does not eat meat, it simply lacks the teeth. True morality requires the presence of an option. To be genuinely good, you must possess the absolute capacity for destruction, and you must possess the iron discipline to keep your sword sheathed. This is the philosophy of controlled lethality. In the 12th century, during the chaotic, blood-soaked era of the Crusades, this psychological reality was engineered into one of the most terrifying military orders in human history, the Knights Templar. Today, the modern world looks at the medieval concept of chivalry and profoundly misunderstands it. We picture a romantic poet, a polite nobleman bowing at a banquet, or a gentle servant of the court. We view chivalry as a set of manners, a guide for opening doors and speaking politely. This is a catastrophic misreading of history. The medieval knight was not a poet. He was an apex predator. He was a highly trained, heavily armored biological weapon of mass destruction. He was a man who spent his entire life mastering the brutal kinetic physics of slaughter. When you unleash thousands of these men onto a battlefield, the violence is absolute. Left to his own primitive instincts, a knight was a monster capable of wiping entire villages off the map simply because he possessed the leverage to do so. He answered to no one but his own ambition. The code of chivalry was not written to teach these men how to be polite. It was written to keep monsters under control. It was a severe, unyielding psychological harness bolted onto the mind of a killer. The architect of the Templar rule, Bernard of Clairvaux, explicitly designed a philosophy that fused the absolute lethality of a warrior with the ascetic discipline of a monk. The code dictated exactly when the sword could be drawn and exactly who it could be drawn against. It demanded that this terrifying capacity for violence be directed solely toward the protection of the innocent, the defense of the weak, and the execution of duty. But here is what most people deeply misunderstand about the Knight's Code. They look at the rules of restraint and completely ignore the foundational requirement of the system. The harness is entirely useless if there is no monster inside it. You cannot apply the code of chivalry to a harmless man. If you put the harness on a weak, incapable peasant, you do not get a knight, you just get a peasant wearing a leash. The entire moral weight of the knight rested on the undeniable, terrifying fact that he could destroy you in an instant, but he actively chose not to. His goodness was validated by his lethality. Your current operating system is heavily infected by the rejection of this truth. You're operating in a society that actively demands the castration of your ambition. When you feel the surge of aggression, the desire to absolutely dominate a market, or the primal urge to become physically formidable, the modern world tells you that your instincts are toxic. It demands that you sit quietly in your cubicle, suppress your competitive drive, and perform the theater of the harmless, compliant modern male. Every time you suppress the monster entirely, you are projecting a massive, fatal vulnerability. You are loudly confessing that you are terrified of your own potential. When you amputate your capacity for aggression, you do not become a saint, you become a victim. You become the man who cannot defend his ideas in a boardroom, cannot protect his family from a physical threat, and cannot impose his will on a chaotic universe. A society composed of harmless men is a society begging to be conquered by ruthless ones. The elite mind views harmlessness as a catastrophic structural flaw. The master knows that the world is dark, indifferent, and highly predatory, and that the only effective shield against a monster is a monster with a code. To break this cycle of synthetic weakness, you must undergo a violent psychological decoupling. You must implement the strategy of controlled lethality. You must stop apologizing for your dangerous capabilities and start systematically expanding them. You must stop outsourcing your sovereignty to a culture that wants you weak and begin the unglamorous work of forging your own blade. First, you must deliberately cultivate the capacity for destruction. You must build the monster. This is not merely about physical combat, though the absolute mastery of your own physical lethality is the foundational baseline of masculine psychology. It extends to every single domain of human competence. You must build an intellect so sharp it can dismantle an opponent's argument in a single sentence. You must build financial leverage so massive that you can completely ruin a competitor who attempts to cross you. You must systematically acquire the exact skills, resources, and attributes that make you a terrifying force on the board. If you cannot inflict damage, you have no leverage. If you have no leverage, your morality is just a performance. Second, you must construct the unyielding psychological harness. The acquisition of power without discipline is the exact definition of tyranny. As you build your lethality, you must simultaneously forge an absolute unbreakable code of conduct. You must map out your exact moral parameters with cold, crystalline clarity. You decide precisely when the aggression is deployed and when it is withheld. You do not let your emotions dictate the release of the monster. If someone insults you, if a minor inconvenience occurs, you do not react with uncontrolled rage. You observe the disruption with the detachment of a man who knows he could shatter the obstacle, but consciously chooses mercy. Your restraint becomes your ultimate display of power. Third, you must deploy calibrated force. The amateur swings the sword at every shadow, exhausted by his own unregulated emotions. The harmless man never swings it at all, paralyzed by his fear of conflict. The strategist operates on a completely different frequency. He evaluates the threat, calculates the exact minimum force required to absolutely neutralize it, and executes with devastating precision. When a boundary is explicitly crossed, when your principles are threatened, or when the people under your protection are endangered, you do not negotiate. You do not ask for fairness. You drop the harness, you unleash the precise kinetic physics of the monster you have built, and you force the world to yield to your standard. You value the swift execution of justice over the appearance of being polite. This choice is not made once. It is a relentless, continuous war against your own biological desire to be comfortable, compliant, and liked by the herd. Tomorrow morning, you will encounter the friction of reality. Society will ask you to shrink. It will ask you to apologize for your intensity, to hide your strength, and to join the massive invisible crowd of harmless men who spend their lives waiting for someone else to protect them. You must kill that impulse on contact. You must look in the mirror and realize that goodness is not an accident of weakness. It is the deliberate, heavy burden of the strong. Let the average man pride himself on his inability to do harm. Let him believe that his vulnerability is a moral victory. Let him outsource his safety and his sovereignty to a world that does not care if he survives. You will demand the danger. You will build the absolute, terrifying capacity for destruction, and you will forge the iron discipline required to control it. You will recognize that the world is heavily populated by sheep, and that the only thing standing between the sheep and the wolves is the shepherd dog, a creature that shares the exact same violent DNA as the wolf, but has submitted to a higher purpose. You will not be a harmless man. You will be a monster tethered by a code, fully prepared to face the darkness of the world. There is no virtue in weakness. There is only the arena. Start now.